Okay. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to
Thank
have
you
you
for
here.
having me.
So, you've got a book, you've got a couple of books out, looks like. And the new one is called Hiding in Plain Sight. Before we get to your books, though, I want to touch a bit on your rather illustrious career. You've done all kinds of things here, according to your bio. And we just want to touch on those and then we'll pivot over to your writing. So, you started out as a police officer, is that correct?
I did. I started in Berkeley and spent 9 years there. And then I moved to Southern California, city of Baldwin Park out in East Los Angeles, and spent 2 years there. Then to Farmington, New Mexico, and 4 years there. And then back to the Bay Area to the Novato Police Department, just north of San Francisco, and retired there as the police chief. Then I moved back to Los Angeles and took the job as the director of security for Universal Studios, and then stayed with them for 10 years. Came back to the Bay Area, did a year with the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, putting the security in for the new museum. And then I do a little consulting work now as well as trying to write.
Security at Universal. Now, I remember going on that tour when I was a kid, and you took the little tram around and you got to see all the things. Was that where you were?
Yes, we were responsible for the theme park and the studio, sound stages, all of our corporate buildings, etc., as well as all of the NBC owned TV stations west of the Mississippi, the West Coast News, and then movie production worldwide.
Things seem to have been a lot less dangerous back in those days. Did you ever have any serious issues while you were working there? Terrorists or anything like that?
Um, we were a target after 9/11, and Homeland Security came out with a list of iconic venues, and ourselves and Disneyland were both listed in Florida and in Los Angeles. So we upped the security around the lot. Fortunately, our studio president was really on top of things, and he was able to get the financing to put in good security systems. So we didn't have a lot of terrorist threats on the property. We were fortunate. We have an LA County Sheriff's substation right on the property, so we have almost instantaneous law enforcement response. So we were very fortunate because of that.
Are you retired now?
Yes, I still do consulting work with a security firm up here in the Bay Area, and then trying to write at the same time.
Do you have just the two books out?
Yes, two published as of now. The first book was problematic with the publisher who I first went with, so it's being republished as of the 10th of this month, just back out as a republished book through Palmetto, who's the same people who did Hiding.
Can I ask why it was problematic?
It was my own fault. I was very new to this. I went with the internet and promises made by companies that are going to publish a book, market your book, make you a New York Times bestseller. All you have to do is send them a check. And I did, and
Oh,
they
okay.
didn't. And they did get the book published onto Amazon, but that was it. Nothing else happened. And then you come to find out when you do your due diligence, which I should have done, I knew better. The company's not even in the United States, so they're bulletproof as far as trying to get any kind of recompense.
Yeah, and you could have published it on Amazon yourself.
I could have, and
Yeah.
I did. I followed it by doing that, and then ultimately I went with the publisher, primarily because trying to market yourself is really difficult for anyone else that wants to do that. It is difficult. I think Amazon said they get about 1 million authors a year, and who are self-publishing, and your book just falls in with that million, unless you have, I think, 3 books is their minimum for advertising, and you're willing to pay the advertising fees to get your book up on the front page, you're just one of a million.
Well, it's true. And the internet has sort of enhanced that, not just for authors, but for music and for film. And I mean, this is a whole nother topic we could get into, which I've gotten into on the show before. But it's interesting to hear. I mean, I'm sorry you had that problem, but it's interesting to hear other people's stories about, basically let the buyer beware, that there is a lot of scams out there.
Yeah, my advice would be one, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And two, do your due diligence. Whatever state you're in, if they're a legitimate business, they should be registered with the Secretary of State, and there should be somewhere in that registration the person who is designated to be receiving service if anything happens. And when you try and do that and you find out the company is not registered with the Secretary of State and there's no person to receive service, run away.
Well, I'll give you a quick story and then we'll pivot over to your book. I'm a lifelong musician, and one of the reasons this show started 10 years ago was for promotion of my music. Okay, it's morphed into something completely different now. But I had a similar situation. I paid $700 to a quote unquote PR company who was going to promote my music, get it on the radio, blah, 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 blah. I sent them the $700 and I never heard from them again. And I emailed them, I didn't get anything back. And then finally, after about the 300th email that I sent them, it was bouncing back as an invalid address.
Yeah, it's with me in the company I had to lock horns with. The address I was given all along was Los Angeles, down on Olympic Boulevard. So again, having lived in Los Angeles for 10 years, I should have driven by the address and seen it was a mail drop. But again, shame on, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I knew better, but it sounded, as I said, too good to be true, so I took the bait.
So you got all that sorted out, and the first book.
I have a legitimate publisher now.
You have a legitimate, good. So when was that book officially published?
The
first
book. Tangle Web, the first book, was originally published in 2020, but republished
okay.
This month on the 10th, and Hiding was published in April of this year.
Was any of your work as a police officer in security contributing to these stories that are in these books?
Yeah, heavily. I was lucky because I bounced around a bit. I met a number of really interesting people, and each person comes with a collection of stories. And I kind of filed them away, and I had occasion to meet with friends, and you would tell them about something that happened while you were at the studio or on the job. And at the end, someone would say, you got to write that down. You should write a book. So I had this file of stories and anecdotal information. So ultimately, I took that and started building a story based on real circumstance, but taking a little editorial license in creating a story that flowed better and add to it. And then the characters in the book are really composites of people I've worked with and had the good fortune to be able to share investigations with.
I was going to ask you, so these are fictional stories that are based on people that you write, composites?
They are. I guess you could, it's not quite historical fiction. It is fiction, but it's loosely based on actual cases.
Are the books related in any way? In other words, is there a main character that goes through both books, or are they totally standalone?
No, they're same character, and there's a third book that's just wrapping up right now. It's in kind of final edit, and I'm going to title it. I haven't done that yet. And again, the same characters. Hopefully, there's a couple of more in process that are different, different characters, different locale, and one's just kind of a fictional adventure story that's really just kind of fun to write and hopefully fun to read. But the characters are the same in the first 3 books, or will be.
Okay, would you consider it a series then?
Yes, it is a series in that the same people, but if you pick any of the books up, you can read it, and there's enough in the, like book 2, you'll be able to relate to the characters and how they got to where they are based on book 1, even if you haven't read it. I was told that by an author that you should write your stories as standalone, and they can be sequential unless you are trying to write a series, like kind of like Michael Connelly's done with Harry Bosch.
So it's not a cliffhanger where you have to get to the second
No,
book to.
no, it's kind of like the Netflix ones where they at the end of the first season they end it, and then the new season starts over. And if anyone's from Netflix out there, they can call me.
So was there one particular thing that sort of inspired you to start writing? Was it having more free time, or was it just people saying you really should write a book?
Kind of a combination of both. Having the time was great, and that's something that I never really thought about. And you sit down and try and put it together. It's really a job. It's not just. I guess it could be a hobby, but if you're serious about it and you want to actually complete the book, you have to be disciplined. You've kind of got to write every day. And if you don't, you lose track, and I think the story suffers. My stories, especially, I think they're character driven. I want people to like the characters. I want them to be able to relate to them and identify with them. And so you have to stay with that and keep those characters fresh and interesting.
Did you have any formal training prior to that? In other words, how to put together a story arc, narratives, punctuation, grammar, any of that?
Well, I'm the product of parochial school education. So
Okay.
the good nuns taught us punctuation and grammar. And that was beneficial. It does make a big difference. It makes the editing, I'm sure the editors I've worked with appreciate the fact that there are commas and periods and capital letters, and they don't have to do all that work. But I had the time, and over the course of my career, I had always written. In law enforcement, you write police reports. The higher you go, you write staff reports. You write lengthy reports. You write grant studies. You do all these things, and then in the security world, you write for productions that are going overseas, all the things that you have to do to set that up. But it's more technical writing. It's not really a story. It's a different style of writing. But it wasn't foreign to me to sit in front of a computer screen and put words on there.
We've got just about a minute left. Can you give us a quick kind of a synopsis of the latest book?
The latest book is a story of a young woman, 13-year-old girl, who's kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered in San Francisco's North Beach area, which is our heavily Italian American neighborhood bordering on Chinatown. So it's the story of the investigation into a serial killer who had flown under the radar up until this point, and then how he's ultimately discovered by the team of investigators from San Francisco Homicide and captured.
Are you one of the characters in these books?
I'm about 3 of the characters in the book, I think.
Okay.
Although a couple of friends who have read it, they pick one out and say, that was who it was. But I think I'm in there in different spots.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on the show. Last question, do you have a website you want to give out?
I do. It's called goldengatetales.com. And you can go on that. There's a forum, there's contact information, there is the ability to purchase a book that way if someone wants to. And then it's on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Okay. Well, Brian, thanks again for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and chatting with you. Best of luck with your writing. I hope you do well.
Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate it. Thank you.